decided 6 months ago to travel to Russia because I've just finished high school, and because I'm a Swiss citizen, it's very common to do. I'm doing a gap year. And first I wanted to go to South America, but somehow things didn't work out, and I've been to Russia. Because I love Russian literature, I kind of like this culture, and I told myself, oh, why not going to Russia? It seems adventurous, and I wanted to go there in winter because I had this image of the cold Russia with snow everywhere, and it was very romantic in my mind. And I've divided my trip in several parts. First, because I wanted to learn more about the culture and the inhabitants in Russia, like who are they, what is Russia, because I know Russia only through media and books. I really wanted to talk to the people, that's why I needed to speak Russian. So the first part of my trip was to learn Russian basics, like just to get along and to survive in Russia and to have a basic conversation. So that's why for this I first came to St. Petersburg, and I've been to a language school which is called Lied and Dance, and I've been to that school for 5 weeks in St. Petersburg, learning Russian every day. I had intensive courses, and it was my first days in Russia, and it's very surprising when you arrive in Russia. You're at the airport, and everyone has a shapka on. You see big dogs everywhere, and everything is written in Russian, and like this Cyrillic alphabet, and it's crazy. You're like, whoa, who am I? Where am I? I'm in Russia, it's fantastic. And that was my first feeling of Russia. And so I came to school. I had a great teacher, and it was very motivating to have amazing persons with me. Those persons were very interesting, very clever, and they were all so motivated for so many different reasons to learn Russian that we had a great time. Those are, like, now I can say they are my best friends. It was amazing to share that time with those people, to learn Russian together, to insult Russian together because it's so hard to learn. It was amazing. Such a great time. And St. Petersburg is a fascinating city because on the one hand it's very Russian. You can't see that anywhere in Europe. But Peter the Great, who is the founder of St. Petersburg, has created St. Petersburg on the model of big European cities. So St. Petersburg looks like, let's say, Versailles, for those of you who have been in Versailles, or Venice. It looks a bit like Venice and Versailles together, but much bigger because we're in Russia. It has to be bigger, and it's very big and beautiful, and you have like golden roofs everywhere, and I think it's one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. And the life here is very different. Like, first you can see it's much poorer than what I've expected. Like Russia, it's kind of a very poor country in comparison to Europe. And you can say that when you meet some Russian people who tells you that they want to go to Europe because they will have a better salary or so ever, and it's kind of something that you noticed on the first days. And you can say also that in St. Petersburg, it's one of the cities with like so much culture going on. You can go out every night, you can go every day to a different exhibition. So there's always a cultural event on, and Russian people, I'm not sure about that, but it's what I've experienced, they love culture. Like, it's always crowded. When you go to the Philiphine, it's always crowded. When you go to the cinema, it's always crowded. And also for the museums and so ever, which is amazing because you can't see that in Europe, where you have few people going to the cinema and so ever. But in Russia, it's crowded all the time. And sometimes I couldn't have a ticket for one play because too many people wanted to go there. And that's something I loved about it. And yeah, St. Petersburg to me is a city it's an artsy city. It's very hipster, lots of art, and it's something good because there's not there's not so many tourists. People are still speaking Russian everywhere, and you have the feeling that it's very authentic, much more than, I don't know, big metropoles in Europe, for example, or other cities that I've visited. And during that first part of my trip, I've been with some of my friends to Murmansk, in Philiphine, which is like in the far north of Russia, and we wanted to see the northern lights that we've missed. But it's a very unique place because you have the sea, you have the feeling that you're at the very end of the world, and there's no one. It's very like lost in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know, all those old Soviet buildings that you can see with the snow and the rocks sinking into the sea. Like, it's kind of an incredible place, like lost in the middle of nowhere, like I said. And so that's was good. And in St. Petersburg, like after I came back to St. Petersburg with my friends also to finish my courses. And also in St. Petersburg, the nightlife is amazing, I have to say. It's incredible. We had great parties. And yeah, so St. Petersburg was a time where I was with international people and trying to learn Russian. It was great fun. And after that, I wanted to go to Moscow. But on the way to Moscow, I've stopped in a place called Valdai. And in Valdai, it's like a very tiny village, and there's basically nothing except the Museum of Bells, which was closed while I was here, and a lake, which was frozen, and that was basically it. So I spent 4 days here, and I knew no one. It was kind of lonely and a bit depressing, but it was a nice view. It was pretty, a nice landscapes, but that was basically it. Like, I recommend you to go to Valdai in summer more than in winter because it was minus 20 degrees and I couldn't have a walk in the national park because of that reason. And after that I went to Moscow, and I had a very big shock because on the one hand I knew only St. Petersburg and small cities, and it was kind of European, but Moscow is very Sovietic in comparison. You have like big skyscrapers everywhere, and it's a very busy city. Everyone is like running everywhere all the time, and you have people everywhere speaking Russian in those like big buildings, and this metro is crowded all the time. So that is Moscow. It's busy, but it's also in Moscow. I loved that city also because of the thanks to the culture. They have a very huge underground scene. You can find loads of clubs with an awesome music, and they're so keen to party. Like, they're dancing to the end of the night without stop, and the music is great, and yeah, that was fun. And even though I was alone, it was the first time that I was going to clubs on my own. I've met so many people who were dancing with me, chatting with me all the time. They were absolutely friendly, because that's one of the cliches you have when you're from the West. You think that Russian people are cold and not friendly at all, and they don't want to talk to you, but it's completely wrong. That's one of the biggest lie I've ever heard, because Russian people just, I don't know, all the person I've met just wanted to talk to me, and I had so many discussions with them, and they are so friendly. It's incredible. They are so nice, and they always want to help you and to talk with you and be your friends, especially if they notice that you're a foreigner and you don't speak Russian, but you're trying to speak Russian. They love you, which is great. I don't know, I've loved it. And in Moscow also, there's loads of those, it's called museum apartments from many writers, because I think Russia is one of the countries which love writers, which love literature, and all the writers in Russia are kind of stars. Everyone knows them. Everyone knows like verses of Pushkin by heart, which is kind of incredible. Pushkin is one of the most famous writer in Russia.
Poet.
And everyone knows him. Everyone knows his verses. It's incredible. Yeah. Exactly. actually visit all those apartments. You can visit Pushkin's apartments, Dostoevsky's apartments, Chekhov's apartments, like all those famous writers are stars. Everyone knows them, which is something that I think is incredible. And I visited like all of them, not all of them, but most of them I visited it. And it's very impressive to go to those old Soviet buildings and to get through all those little doors and to see how people used to live. Like, I highly recommend you to do that if you go to Moscow. And yeah, what else? I've been in Moscow for the New Year. It was also an experience to go with all this, to go in that crowd, because like it's crowded. Everyone just go to the Red Square for the New Year, and you can't even move. Like everyone squeezed you, and you're completely tied between billions of people that want to see the fireworks on this Red Square. And so you can't see them because you can't enter, because there's too much people. And we had to like run over a bridge with my friend to get to see the fireworks like coming behind the Kremlin. It was kind of beautiful, like everyone just throwing out champagne everywhere and like saying S Novym Godom, which means Happy New Year. And it was a very nice experience. And just to party till the end of the night with Russians, like that was great. That was a great fun. And after Moscow, after the New Year, like on the 1st of January, my friend and I, because a friend joined me in Moscow, and my friend and I, we took the train from Moscow to Irkutsk, and we had a 3 days ride, non-stop, from Moscow to Irkutsk on the Trans-Siberian, which is like the first part of this Trans-Siberian, like, yeah. And during 3 days, we've done nothing. It was great. We've just chatted and chatted, and because he could speak French, we were just the two of us only chatting and like playing cards and eating those instant noodles all the time that you learn to like and hate at the same time, because you can't eat something else. And the time goes in a very strange way in the Trans-Siberian, because you get through all those time zones. I don't know how you say that in English, but time zones, and you get to like 5 different of them, and you have no clue what time is it. Like, is it day? Is it night? I don't know. Where am I? I don't know. And you're completely lost in that train with all the people that are living with you. And there's this woman in the wagon, which is kind of I would say the queen of the wagon. How do you call her?
Conductor.
Not the conductor, like the woman who rules everything. Like she gives you your ticket, she tells you when you have to go out, and she cleans everything.
In English name is a conductor, I think, but in Russian it's проводник.
Yeah, проводница.
Yeah, проводница.
Проводница. There's this проводница, which, because I think she knows that you're a foreigner, she doesn't, and you have no clue when you have to go out. She just like she just like comes to you and say, oh, by the way, the next stop is yours. And she helps you all the time, and she like watches everything. She's the queen of this place, which is kind of interesting to see. She knows you by your name and all, and
she's in charge of it.
Yeah, she's in charge of everything.
She has the control.
Yeah, she controls basically everything on that wagon. And if you have any questions, you go to her, and you're wondering what does she do for a living, where does she sleep, what does she do. She's like a mysterious and fascinating character in this train. And on the train you get to see so many families and young people, like everyone takes the train, but no tourists. Like it's only Russian people that are taking the train because they want to go from one place to another, and it's the cheapest way. And that's why you don't see tourists, and that's why if you travel alone, Russian is needed. But that's another part. So we arrived after this 3-day ride of train in Irkutsk, which is in the middle of Siberia, middle
This is
south.
the central part of eastern Siberia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Irkutsk.
So that's why I don't want to say something wrong. And when we arrived, it was 3 a.m. and we were in Irkutsk. in the Irkutsk station, and we were supposed to get a taxi at 8 a.m. to go to an island. But the thing didn't happen like they were supposed to happen, because it would have been too easy. So at 8 a.m. I received a text from the taxi, and they were like, "Oh, by the way, you should go to that place at that time." And so we went to that place at that time, and they told us, "Oh, if you see that white Fiat, like the brand Fiat, just jump in it." And we're like, "Oh, we don't see any white Fiat." And I was calling that number to try to figure out where was that white Fiat and how I could like find it. And I was trying to speak in Russian and like getting informations in Russian, which was a nightmare because I couldn't speak Russian. And like that lasted around 1 hour to try to know where was that white Fiat. And all of a sudden I was getting a bit depressed and scared, and I was a bit yelling at my friend like, "What are we doing here? Oh my god, why are we in Russia? Oh, it's terrible, we're all gonna die, it's minus 30 degrees, and I'm dying." And at that very moment, a huge like minibus arrived in front of us, saying that he opened the door, like still rolling, he was still rolling, he opened the door, yelling, "Philippine!" And I was like, "What the fuck?" And he just like made a sign, and we jumped in the car because we had no clue. So we just jumped in because he was screaming my name, and we arrived in a car full of Chinese tourists and 3 rich Russians drinking vodka at the back, and I'm not even joking. And we had like we went to that car, and we had a 5 hours drive, and the guy just like drove so quickly on those very, very, you know, the roads, right? They are like very highly,
Yeah.
and there's a layer of ice on those roads.
Yeah, but we got winter tires, it's okay. We
Yeah.
got winter tires.
Yeah,
And
but
drivers are super professional. They drive the same road like about 20
Yeah,
years
I know.
probably.
But when you don't know, it's kind of surprising because the guy drives so quick, and you're like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die." And you have your car, and there's another car coming, and as quick as yours, and you're like, "Oh my god, they're gonna like bump into each other, and we're all gonna explode." But that didn't happen. That's why I'm here. But but anyway, it was kind of impressive to have that ride. It was better than a roller coaster.
Yeah,
I assure you.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's why sometimes it's better to take a tour guide.
Yeah.
Properly we speak in tour guide because the car.
Just making some advertisement.
Tour guide there.
But anyway, we arrived on that island, which is named Orkhon Island.
Correct.
And it's beautiful. It's just one of the most beautiful places in the world so far I've seen. Because it's you have an incredible landscape, like very highly, and few trees, a big forest, and a lake. The lake is huge. It's bigger than a sea. You don't see the end of the lake, so you have the feeling that it's a sea, and it's completely frozen. So imagine just like try to figure out how is a frozen sea. You have a frozen sea and mountains sinking to that frozen sea. And the thing which is the most incredible in that place is the silence. Because it's frozen, you can't even hear the sound of the waves. It's completely silent. And you can hear everything. And because it's like I was a bit outside the village, which is called Huzur. I was a bit like, I think I was around like 30 minutes walk away from that village, and we couldn't hear no car, no people. We were completely alone in this world, and we had no Wi-Fi neither. We were like shut down. Everything was shut down. It was like such an adventure, and we were like really in this very moment on that island. It was beautiful, though very cold. Because we tried to have a walk, and it was like after 30 minutes of walk, my feet were freezing, my hands were freezing. I just wanted to come into any kind of warm place I could find. but still, it's worth it to have a good equipment when you go.
20 minutes past.
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Oh, sorry, should I like... Well, you've seen that island, it was beautiful. And then I came back to Irkutsk when I spent a few days just like a bit like discovering the city. It was only sightseeing because my friend left me for another adventure. And I took the train from Irkutsk to Vladivostok, and this time I was on my own. And it was incredible also. It was a completely different experience to be on my own than to be with my friend. Because this time I could speak with everyone who was in the train. I could like make some friendship, to have like discussions and discovering more about the Russian soul, the Russian spirit, and to know a lot of histories of people that just want to talk with you because they are so bored that everyone wants to talk to you even though you don't speak Russian. So it was great. And then I arrived in Vladivostok. And Vladivostok is a very interesting city also because it's a mix of Europe and Asia. And you have like all those Asian influences in a city with the same architecture as lots of Soviet cities, which is very interesting. Like the mix is very interesting. And in the train you could see the landscapes evolving from Europe and those very Russian landscapes to Asian landscapes. And it was amazing to see. And in Vladivostok I've used couchsurfing for the first time, and I got very lucky because the guy who hosted me was great. He was a very fun guy, and he taught me a lot about Vladivostok, the city. He brought me to parties. He explained me a lot about philosophy, Asia, Confucius, and all this Russian stuff. That wasn't Russian, that's a joke. And yeah, that was great. So yeah, that was the end of my trip because after Vladivostok I took a plane from there to Korea. Completely randomly.
You decided to go to Korea.
Yeah. But if I just can say something about Russia, is that the propaganda that we have in the West against Russia is completely false. And if you want to have an idea of what's going on there, who are the people, what they think about politics, about life, you should definitely like speak to them and not believe what's in the media, because that's wrong. And all the people that I've met, they made my little vision of Russia, and I've met many different kinds of people, from the owner of a street club to LGBTQ activists to just random guys in the train, and everyone had his own vision of Russia, which is such a big country that you can't summarize it in few Western articles saying that Putin is bad.
Yeah. Actually, show your video with Putin.
Yeah, I can show you after.